Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Commonwealth Club presented by Inforum, a division of the club by and for people in their 20s and 30s with a mission to inspire debate on civic issues. We've recently launched our new In the Know campaign. Blind faith is now truly blind. It's time to participate. If you repeat the arguments of the past, you'll continue to live there. Today, that stops today, the need to be in the know. You can find us online at commonwealthclub.org/inforum. I'm Jonathan Curiel, UCLA lecturer and former San Francisco Chronicle reporter, and this evening's moderator for the event, John Perkins, How to Remake the Global Economy. John is a reformed economist and the author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman, The Secret History of the American Empire, and the recently released book, Hoodwinked. John is also the founder and board member of Dream Change and the Pachamama Alliance. John Perkins is here to tell us why reverting to our traditional blueprints for the global economy could prove dangerous and to show us how we can transform our mutant capitalism into a system based on sustainability and justice. So let's get started. John, you're best known for Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which came out in 2004. This book has a lot of the same motifs and in fact uses the similar cover anyway. What's the need for a sequel to your book, and why did you write this book now?
Great question, Jonathan. Well, in the 5 years since Confessions came out, I've been traveling around the United States a great deal, China, Iceland, Latin America, and perhaps most importantly, my daughter gave me a 2-year-old grandson. Well, he's 2-year-old. He's 2 now. He didn't come out that way. And when I hold this baby in my arms and look down at him, I always have to wonder, what's this world going to look like in 6 decades when he's my age? And I think it's going to be very ugly if we stay the course. But we have a great opportunity now, all of us, to move into a very new type of world. I think we need to move out of the type of capitalism that we've been in, which I call predatory capitalism, and into a new type of economy. And I see this beginning to happen. And so Hoodwinked, it comes from a deep place of passion for me, of realizing that I don't know whether I've got another 20 minutes left of life or another 20 years. I know it's not probably too much longer than that. And I know that I want to devote all of that time to making a better world for my grandson, and the realization that the only way he can have a sustainable, just and peaceful world is if every child growing up in Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, the whole world has that same hope, that same expectation, and we realize it for everyone. We're such a small planet now. We're such a fragile species living on this tiny planet. It's really a spaceship without a shuttle, and I think we've got the wrong navigators and pilots running it, and we need to change that. So Hoodwinked for me was about how do we change that? Where do we go from here? We've created a failure. We've got to get into a system that truly works for everyone.
I should say that the subtitle of the book is An Economic Hitman Reveals Why the World Financial Markets Imploded and what we can do, what we need to do to remake them. Now, your previous book and other writings by you have talked about the countries, say in Africa and other, quote unquote, third world areas that this economic program has hit, as it were, right? But this book, Hoodwinked, starts off in Iceland, you go there, and at one point Iceland was a kind of model of the economic upturn. Real estate prices, real estate values up, economy way up, and when you go there, it's become downsized, as it were, and you're struck by how similar Iceland's economy is to these other, economies that were in the third world, as it were. So, can you talk about how this meltdown really is surprising, and how that relates to this book and your previous work?
Yeah, in 2007, Iceland was ranked by the World Bank as the world's 3rd wealthiest country per capita. And I was interviewed for a documentary on Iceland made by Icelandic television about that time, and was told about what Alcoa's hitmen were doing. Alcoa Aluminum had sent these people into Iceland to convince them to take out a huge loan, build a gigantic hydroelectric plant just for Alcoa. 600 megawatts. The whole country, but prior to that, was only using 300 megawatts. and it would destroy a huge fragile environment, and all the environmental laws were waived. And when I heard this, I said, well, Iceland will probably be the first developed country to go bankrupt. And I said this on this documentary, and it happened a couple of years later, because in fact, every megawatt hour that's sold to Alcoa cost the country hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a terrible deal for Iceland, a great deal for Alcoa. And so when the movie premiered in Iceland, they invited me to come and go around the country talking, and it really struck me as how, you know, here Iceland had been hit in exactly the same way that I used to hit countries in the third world. You have a resource that corporations covet. In the case of Iceland, it was electricity, cheap electricity. In the case of many countries, it was oil. You arrange a huge loan to that country, and you strike a really good deal for multinational corporations. And then in the end, the country can't pay off its loan, like Iceland can't now. So you've got them. You know, they're part of the empire. You've got them. You can ask favors. You can ask, vote with you on the next UN vote, whatever. And so I watched this happen all over the third world during my time as an economic hitman, and here it was happening in Iceland, and now it's happening in the United States. It's very similar to what we've done with our housing loans. You know, we've convinced people to take out loans that they can't pay. Buy a $400,000 house, even though you really should only be affording a $300,000 one. But remember, that house is going to be worth $800,000 5 years from now. That's what people were told. When it doesn't happen, people can't pay their loans, and they become essentially slaves of the system. That's what I mean by a predatory form of capitalism. It's a form that benefits a few wealthy and powerful people and has made them incredibly wealthy and powerful. Just today it was announced that Wall Street's making record profits this year, and all the executives are going to get huge bonuses, while the rest of us, our houses are being foreclosed and we're unemployed.
Well, in your book, Hoodwinked, you talk about how Obama's election doesn't necessarily herald a new beginning of change when it comes to the U.S. economy and business, and that you describe it as a corporatocracy, that the corporatocracy's tentacles are so settled in all aspects of the economy, but also politics and from lobbyists and so forth. Can you talk about how, as far as you're concerned, Obama's election is really a mixed bag?
Well, yes. You know, first of all, I think there's a strong symbolic thing that happened with Obama's election. We, the people, said we want change. We definitely sent the message out there, we want radical change. And we have seen in the last few years Latin America having a revolution. There is a revolution going on. 10 countries in Latin America, representing more than 80% of the people there, have voted in governments that are saying, no more exploitation by foreign corporations. You know, our resources are going to be used to help our people. We'll strike deals with foreign companies because you've got the technology, but we want our resources to help our people. 10 countries in Latin America. And every one of those 10 countries during most of my lifetime was ruled by dictators. Every one of them. Brutal dictators, usually with the help of the CIA. That all changed in the last few years. And then that revolution really kind of moved north. And we went from a very conservative Republican, a white Republican oil man, to a very liberal African American from the Midwest. A huge symbolic change. But in the process, Obama took a lot of money from Goldman Sachs and other Wall Street firms and from Monsanto, and no surprise that Goldman Sachs now is running the financial sector and Monsanto is running the agricultural sector. And that's the way the system works. It's a sick, terrible system. And I think the most important thing that comes out of this, as far as I'm concerned, is what I've been saying all along, is that it has to be we the people. We can't just vote in an Obama or anybody and then sit back and watch Monday Night Football or American Idol or whatever we're watching. We've got to make it happen. We the people have to do it, and it's always been that way. We're back to that again, and I think that the mixed signal is we sent a strong message. We want serious change. And then we sat back. We're sitting back today. We've got to take over. You know, I think it's fair to say that our country has been stolen. The world's been stolen. And we want to get it back. And we're going to get it back.
Well, if you could, let's go back a little bit, because let's talk about your time in the 1970s where you were, even though you didn't realize it at the time, an economic hitman. I think there are people listening and here in the audience who may not necessarily know what that actually entails. And can you briefly summarize what your job was as a quote-unquote economic hitman in Indonesia and other places where you represent this kind of government corporate tandem designed to draw in resources and then dependency in a way?